You are listening to the Tricorder Transmissions Special Episode 32. And now, here are Craig and Jeff.
Thanks for beaming aboard the Tricorder Transmission Supplemental Log number 32. Tonight, we're pulling together a special panel to talk about a huge announcement of a brand new Star Trek series slated to hit the air in January of 2017. And here to talk about this unexpected news is a truly awesome panel made up of one brand new and two returning guests. So I'm your host, Jeff Hewlett, of course, and with me is the administrator of the unofficial Star Trek Las Vegas Facebook page, talented cosplayer and returning guest, the fantastic Heather Barker.
Oh, thank you so much.
How are you doing tonight, Heather?
I'm great. I'm excited to talk about Star Trek.
We are too, and I'm glad that you were able to make it tonight. This is a last-minute thing. So next up is a longtime contributor to the show, our resident Star Trek literature expert and DS9 fanboy, Mr. Chris Ritzer.
Hey, what's up? It's good to be back.
Yeah, great to have you back as always. It's been a little while, but not too long.
Yes.
Yeah, so, and finally, we've got a brand new guest to the show, and tonight you might know him from his work on the spectacular web series, The Red Shirt Diaries, and maybe some other places. That'll be Mr. Adam Drosin. I hope I'm pronouncing that properly.
You got it. Hey, guys, thrilled to be here.
So, Adam, you are joining us from a Trek-related location?
I am actually standing currently on the planet Echoes from the episode Patterns of Force. I work at Paramount Pictures in a pretty non-Star Trek related capacity, but I figured I'd give you guys a call over here, join in from a pretty iconic spot. I'm really standing on the steps where the Nazi commander asked Mr. Spock to remove his helmet, and I'm just a short stone's throw away from the planet where piece of the action happens. So a lot of Star Trek history still here. Wow,
that's pretty awesome. As a Star Trek fan, that must be pretty fun to work there.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it's one of those things where, you know, I'll be going about my day and I'll be, oh, there's Gene Roddenberry's office, or oh, that's where the promenade was on DS9. It's a lot of fun.
Does it still look the same 49, 50 years later?
Oh, it looks absolutely the same. In fact, I'll take a quick snapshot once we're done here and send it to you so you can do like a little side-by-side comparison.
Oh, that's really, really cool. So I was talking before the show started here with Heather and Chris talking about how this is actually the second time we've had someone dial into the show from a Trek-related location. And the first time was when we had George Pappy, the creator of the Susan Oliver documentary, The Green Girl. He actually works on one of the shooting locations from Operation Annihilate out in California. So the Flying Omelets, he works. It's actually the cafeteria on his work site. It was used in that episode. So pretty cool.
That's fantastic. I actually I made a flying omelet for Red Shirt Diaries. Keep an eye out. Red Shirt Diaries season 2. Did a lot of the props for that. So definitely love that episode, and can't wait to dig in with you guys here and talk some Trek.
So before we do that, since you brought up Red Shirt Diaries, you want to talk a little bit about your involvement with that web series? I mean, you guys just started season 2, but you've been involved for a while now, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It was a total cold call situation. It was really interesting. I had found their show through Trek FM, which is another great podcast network for Trek podcasts. And they do a show called Continuing Mission about the different fan films and productions that have been going on. And I saw these guys. I thought, wow, that's really funny. And I actually went to NYU Film School. That's where I learned how to make props and set design, all that kind of stuff. So I just reached out and see if they needed any help on the second season. And since then, I've become really great friends with Jason and Ashley. And I recommend you guys all check out the Red Shirt Diaries season 2. If you're listening to this show, you probably love TOS. And this is a really, really great kind of fun little riff on that. And you can check that out at youtube.com/Jawin.
Yeah, so a little shameless plug for our own show here. And if you go back in our history on our website, you'll see some earlier recordings that we did with Jason and Ashley back when the first season of Red Shirt Diaries was coming out. So you can check out some of the older stuff there too. We did some promo work with them and a little bit of an interview. So a lot of cool stuff. So Anyway, we are here to talk about something very, very important in the Star Trek universe, and that was earlier in the week, a couple days ago actually, CBS announced the production of a new Star Trek television series that will be airing sometime in January of 2017, and it is to be streamed exclusively via CBS's All Access application. So I guess it's going to be available on phones and tablets and different TV box viewing smart TVs and things like that. But aside from that, they're going to do a preview episode on the actual CBS television network. But other than that, it's going to be exclusive to the streaming network. So Alex Kurtzman, co-writer of the 2009 reboot and the Into Darkness movie that followed up, will serve as one of the executive producers. It's up in the air right now, though, whether it's going to be released on a weekly or a bi-weekly basis, or if they're going to do it all at once, like some of the new trendy web series and like Netflix shows are doing. So there's a bit of a mystery around this. No official series title, no actors or actresses associated with the production have been announced, and we don't know the relationship of this new show to the existing Star Trek canon or the chronology. So is it going to be the typical serious Star Trek that we know and love, or is it going to be closer to the newer movies, which were more action-oriented, kind of almost sci-fi action comedy? So we're not really sure what's going to be happening. So that's kind of why we're here tonight, to speculate as Trek fans about what we're hoping this show turns out to be, or what ideas we may have for it. So let's jump right in. And I guess the first thing I'm going to throw out to everybody, we'll go in order here, is, what time period are you hoping that this show is set in? Are you hoping for, like a more prequel, like Enterprise? Are you hoping for a TOS era, something after that? Why don't we kick it off? Heather, what do you think? What time period do you hope this show is set in?
Oh, I'm bad because I haven't even thought about the time period. I just want something new, and I'm not picky about what it is. I don't really want any prequels because we've done that. So definitely something later on. But honestly, I really haven't specified what I would like as far as that goes.
We have done the prequels already. Adam, what do you think? What time period are you hoping for?
I'm a Prime guy. I love Prime Universe, so I'm hoping it's that. I wouldn't be surprised if this does end up being an extension of the JJ verse, the all-timeline. But since it is, a lot of people may or may not be aware. In 2006, Viacom, which is the Paramount parent company, had split up CBS and Paramount. So the TV rights went to CBS, including all of the TOS, TNG, all that stuff. And movies became exclusively the domain of Paramount. So I could see it going either way. Personally, I would prefer to see something possibly post-Voyager and kind of maybe, there's so many things you could do in terms of this streaming platform. You could flash back and forth and kind of catch us up to, sort of things that happen in between what we already saw and bridging us to an even deeper future. That's, I think, what I'd like to see. But if it does turn out to be an extension of the JJ verse, there's so many places you can take it. And that, I think, design aesthetic could really be fruitful in a long form setting.
I like how it's now coined the JJ verse.
That's not mine. But I'll take that credit, sure.
Well, I don't think I've heard the JJ verse before. I've heard a lot of JJ variants, but maybe not necessarily that one. So, Chris Ritzer, I know we briefly talked about this topic when we kind of got together not long ago, so I saved you for last. So, what about you and the time period that this show is going to be set in?
Yeah, I'm hoping for around 100 years past the end of Deep Space Nine in the Prime Universe. That would definitely be what I prefer. I guess if you're doing the JJ verse, you could pretty much go anywhere. It really doesn't matter because there's not much known there anyway. You can jump around. But yeah, I would definitely love to see Prime Universe about 100 years from now. It frees them up to do a lot of different things. You're not tied down by any continuity if you're doing it between series at all or directly after. It gives them a nice palette to work with, I think.
Yeah, and if they set it that far in the future, I guess they'd have to reimagine some of the technologies on the show that we've come to already know, right? It would stand to reason that far in the future, it would be way far more advanced than what we saw in DS9, right?
Yeah, then you'd probably end up having ships all with slipstream drive or something like that, how they had in Voyager, and they do all kinds of things. But yeah, so who knows?
Does anyone here play Star Trek Online?
No.
Oh, no.
I don't, and not to jump ahead with speculation, but I've heard some talk that it could be incorporated.
Really?
Yeah, my fiance plays. I don't, so I don't know a whole lot about the context of the game, but I think it is somewhere in the future. It's got a lot of characters in it, and a lot of actors have voiced those characters. I'm not sure exactly what time frame it occurs in, but I've heard some speculation that they may be tying that in somehow. I mean, we don't know anything right now. Speculation, but just a thought.
I always thought it was kind of funny. To preface this, I'm a huge fan of Brandon Braga's writing, but I always did find it kind of amusing that in the run up to Enterprise, he would say, to kind of justify why they made the decision to do it as a prequel, he said, what does past Voyager look like? What would that look like? They couldn't really wrap their heads around it. Well, before TNG, what would TNG look like? They kind of were inventing it as they went along. So I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that we could get something in the Prime timeline post DS9 and Voyager. In fact, I'm pretty positive that 99.9% of the hardcore Trek fan base would prefer that, but whether or not that's something that'll come to pass is quite another situation.
That's a good point. And Heather, I think that the bringing up of Trek Online is a good point, because I know I haven't played that since it originally came out a while back, but I know that they've been pushing the storyline of that game ahead, and they've had a lot of expansion packs, and they keep releasing new episodes in the game in these long form story arcs. So
yeah, and they've done a lot to develop the story there, and it would certainly be interesting. I mean, of course, I don't play, so I have no idea besides what I hear from Jeremy and from other friends that do play it and that work for the game. But it would be interesting. I don't know how they would do that, but just throwing it out there.
Well, that kind of dovetails well into something that a couple of you brought up as part of the last question, was the universe the TV show is going to be set in. So the show is going to actually air not long after the third installment in the new reboot universe movie is released, right? So it would stand to reason that they would want to continue on with what the public has seen most recently, but are they definitely shoehorned into staying with the reboot universe, or would it be acceptable for them to have a Prime Universe show and do JJ verse movies at the same time? What do you think, Chris?
This is the big question, I think. It's really difficult to answer. You would think that to make the most money and get the most subscribers, they would probably go JJ verse, because if they try to just aim this towards old school Trek fans, they're going to miss a lot of casual fans out there. And I think money is going to probably drive a lot of it. That being said, I would also think, though, that you'd almost have to have the Enterprise on this thing. Like, I really don't know how you can sell a new Star Trek show without an Enterprise as well. So it's really a tough question to answer.
Yeah, that's actually a really great point. We're going to get to that type of detail in a little bit. Adam, what do you think about the universe setting? I know you talked a little bit already about it, but are they stuck staying with the JJ verse at this point?
It's an interesting point. I think if you want to listen to on Trek FM, Larry Nemechek, who's just a genius with all this kind of stuff, really deep knowledge, he was talking with Chris Jones at Trek FM about how if you kind of stack it up, on one hand, the most recent, of course, is the JJ films, and that's about 4 hours worth of content, as opposed to 700 plus hours of content over the last about 50 years. So it really is going to be interesting whether or not CBS does decide to sort of get proprietary with their little corner of the sandbox and say, no, we're going to really sort of dig our heels in and sort of go for that classic, if quote unquote, original Trek style, or like was just mentioned, the idea that, well, this is sort of the most prevalent, most current iteration of Trek in the public's consciousness. Why not play off that? Why not build off of what's been established in the last 6 years now? So I think at this point, it really could go either way.
Yeah, to Chris's point, this really is a money-making endeavor. So it seems to stand to reason that, the new version of the franchise, this more action-adventure sci-fi angle, it would seem like that to bring in the biggest audience, and especially the new audience that they've been trying to turn on and bring into the franchise, they would want to tailor it so that it appeals to a broader audience. Heather, what do you think?
Oh, goodness. So, the JJ movies are Hollywood movies.
Mm-hmm.
They're not a TV series. And I think that if they kept with that universe, I don't see how they couldn't go back to just returning to less, explosions and fireworks and more to true Star Trek stories. Could they do it? Yes. I think that to sustain it, they would really need to do a lot of development, because there's not a lot of development among those movies.
Mm-hmm.
You definitely still wouldn't have the same characters. I think we'd all want to see new characters, obviously. Could they combine them? Possibly. I think if they did so, it would probably be similar to like Battlestar Galactica. A lot of action there, but also storyline and drama, character development. I think that would probably be the best of both worlds if they were going to keep the JJ verse involved. I think that the fan base would have quite a reaction, because it seems to be very split between love of the JJ movies and hate of the JJ movies.
Great. Yeah, good point. That's another great way to look at it. If a TV show would definitely have to focus more on long form story arcs and character development, where a movie usually can act as a standalone, hour and a half, 2 hour popcorn thing. And I think they'd have to go in a little bit of a different direction. I'm not sure if it could be that type of action adventure every single week on the show without, giving the audience things to keep them coming back.
And that's why I think, like, comparing it to Battlestar Galactica,
yes,
the newer one. I don't know if you've all seen it, but
of course.
Oh yes.
Almost every episode is a cliffhanger, and I binged it, and I'm just, give me more. I need the BSG crack. That would be awesome if that happened with Star Trek. I would love to see a combination of storytelling and action.
But I think that Battlestar Galactica series is a really great example of what sci-fi can be on television. And I hope they kind of go to school on that.
Well, that's pretty much how Deep Space Nine was, especially in the last few seasons.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's no sort of surprise that you can read BSG as sort of Ron Moore's revision of what he wanted to do if he was fully allowed to explore some of those later themes in DS9. But I think it's interesting that Heather brought up the word binge, which is certainly in this new digital context how it's kind of going. And personally, I think I'm coming from a pretty different place in my fandom as you three guys. I like to consider myself the first generation of streaming fandom. I didn't really get into Trek until 2011, in which I was, when I mentioned earlier, I went to NYU Film School, where I was hardcore the experimental film nerd and the cinematography nerd and the foreign film guy, and that's still very much part of my viewing palette. But post school, this was around the same time that streaming really took off with Netflix, and I sort of found, there's 700 hours of this show. I could probably get into this, and so I don't really have the same sort of delineation in the way that most long-term fans and deep fans of Trek do. And I think that that sort of format really will open up a whole new audience, regardless of JJ Classic, whatever, that there could be some really, really interesting opportunities to just open this world up in such a different way that we couldn't even expect it a week earlier before this all access detail was dropped on us.
I want to delve into the all access topic, but I kind of wanted to save that part for later, since it's kind of controversial.
Didn't mean to get ahead of you there, Jeff.
Oh, no, it's quite all right. I'm dying to talk about that, but I want to talk a little bit more about what we think the show is going to be before we jump into that. So let's go talk a little bit about something Chris brought up, and it was a point that I wanted to bring up. Is, do we think that we're going to see the Enterprise on this show, or or would you prefer it to be a totally new ship with a totally new crew? Chris, since you brought up the Enterprise, I'll throw to you first.
I think it's time to bring the proper Enterprise back. Not like the prequel Enterprise, but I'd like to see a new one again. I mean, we've had Voyager, and on Deep Space Nine, you had your Defiant there, and it was nice to get back to basics. I just really think, too, it would help out with viewership as well, because I'm not sure how many subscriptions they're going to get without an Enterprise in there. So it's definitely twofold for me. I want it because I want them to get the subscribers. I want them to keep the show going. And plus, I just want it because I want more Enterprise. And I want to see, I would definitely love to see, the next generation Enterprise, 100 years from now. I think that would just be great.
That would be really cool. And that's something that we talk about on our TOS show a lot, is that the Enterprise really is a character on the show, and you need that familiar
we haven't
vessel.
had that in so long, and it would just be nice to have that again.
I agree with you. Heather, what do you think about the Enterprise or new ship?
Again, it's something that I haven't put a ton of thought into. I've tried really hard not to speculate too much because I don't want to build something in my head and then it not happen. I think it's a great point that the Enterprise is a character in the show, and I would be satisfied if we saw her again. I think that the crew is more important to me than the ship. So I'm looking for diverse characters. I'm looking for storytelling. The ship just isn't as important to me. So I'm fine either way. I agree that having the Enterprise in the show would appeal to the fan base, especially since we haven't seen her for a while. So either way, I'm okay.
All right. And Adam, your thoughts on Enterprise versus new ship?
Interesting. I think Chris is pretty spot on in that it's about as iconic Trek as you can get. I think that's why when they wanted to name the show Enterprise, what could we call this show without calling it Star Trek that people would get? It's Enterprise. So I think I'm more along the lines of Heather's line of thinking here, where it's the ship itself doesn't quite matter as much as the stories being told and the characters operating therein. I think it'd be kind of cool if there was a reboot of Cheers and they never went to a bar called Cheers. But I honestly could take it or leave it. I think that if it was the JJ Enterprise, I think that ship looks great. I love how the nacelles kind of flip in and the contrails zoom out as it goes to warp. But I could take it or leave it, to be honest with you.
Oh, interesting. I for one, I'm hoping for an Enterprise, but I'm going to give it a chance either way. If it's a new ship, then so be it. Just hopefully it's a cool design. Yeah. All right, so moving on to we'll get into some more of the crew type discussions here, and I guess every ship needs a captain, right? So what kind of a captain are you guys looking forward to seeing? Someone familiar with some of the familiar traits of our past captains, or a totally new departure on the concept of the captain? We've had all different types of captains. So, Heather, what kind of a captain do you want to see on this new ship?
An awesome captain. We've seen such diversity. I can't just say, oh, I'd love to see another female captain. I just want a kick-ass captain. I think another captain of color would be great. But I think if we took traits from all of the captains that we've had, their strong points, and put them into a completely new character, it would be great. And I think possibly a young captain. I don't want to see this series go the way of some of these shows that are just appealing to the younger masses. I definitely want a series that attracts everyone, but I don't want something catered to teenagers. Having said that, I think that a younger captain would be interesting to have.
Yeah, excellent point. Now, that's something that kind of bugs me about modern television these days. It seems like there's a lot of one-note TV out there, and it seems to appeal to just like a teeny bopper audience. And I hope they wouldn't go that way with Star Trek, but you never know. Adam, your thoughts on the captain and what you would like to see trait-wise or character-wise?
I would love to see this captain really exhibit their own methodology of thinking. I think it's fascinating if you look at the 5 captains we've had so far. If you watch a certain amount of episodes, you can really sort of put together, this is how Cisco thinks, and this is how he approaches a problem, as opposed to how Janeway might do it, or Picard, and so on. And I think that's what I would love to see, is someone with a really sort of defined, specific methodology by which they captain and lead and approach problems. And I would love to see where, from a production standpoint, where a 21st century writing staff would sort of formulate such a character.
Chris, are you looking forward to any specific captain traits? I know you're a Cisco fan.
Yes. Yeah, I pretty much agree with what Adam said. I would like to see a captain that's sort of doing their own thing and not a retread. Exactly how that would be, I don't know. I think the good money, though, is there'll be a female captain, though. That's where I'm putting my bet.
Interesting. So do any of you think they'll go so far as to make this captain a descendant of one of the former captains?
Oh, I hope not.
Yeah.
Leave all the characters in the past. Mention them as here and there maybe, but no, I don't want anyone, no relatives, please.
Yeah, no, please. To cross the stream just for a moment here, I had a conversation today about the new Star Wars, and is Kylo Ren going to be Luke Skywalker, blah, blah, blah. Is everyone in this galaxy related to each other? I mean, come on. So I think it'd be cool if it was just a totally different, takeoff with maybe just a few sort of hints towards a connection.
Yeah. You know what I think would be really cool? If the captain was Worf's son.
The Alexander show. Oh my
gosh.
Maybe that's what he meant by the whole Captain Worf thing he was trying to push at the convention. Maybe it's his son.
No.
I think. Well, just a quick side note. I think it's really interesting how that kind of come across. Where the first convention I went to was in 2012, and that was just when that whole Captain Worf rumor started. And someone asked Dorn about it on stage. She's like, "I'm not involved with that whatsoever." And then now, flash forward 3 years later, and he's like trying to make it really happen. I think he realized how stoked people were on that idea and just sort of rolled with it. But I think that's not something that gets brought up a lot, because every time I see it, I'm like, yeah, I remember him sort of not really going for that. But anyway, I digress.
Yeah, he totally flipped on that. But that brings an interesting point, though. What about a non-human starship captain?
Yeah.
Awesome. Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that'd be really cool, but I think they won't do that because they'll think people can't relate to the captain then.
You're probably right.
Yeah.
So that totally rules out a Gorn captain.
Yes.
God damn it.
However, this is why I would love to see it set in the future too, because then you can have Gorn in the crew.
Exactly.
And that would be fantastic.
With no tails.
Yes.
Gorn do not have tails. No Enterprise Gorns, please. So speaking of the crew, let's talk a little bit about the crew. So there's a bunch of different things we could do with the crew, and one thing that I immediately jumped to mind is large crew, small crew. To focus on a small group of characters like in the original series, have more of an ensemble crew like on the Next Generation. What do you guys prefer as far as the complement of crew? Adam, what do you think about the crew in general?
I think it'll definitely be just beyond, what universe, this and that. I think it'll definitely be a much more serialized Trek than we've seen to date, just because that's the television climate now. And I think that would lend itself really well to a larger crew, something I know a lot of fans really love from past shows is the Lower Decks episodes, and you kind of see, what's going on sort of just to the side. And I think that a larger crew plus a serialized format plus a streaming capability would really lend itself well to some interesting storytelling.
Yeah, and it might also lend itself to like little sub web series type things like they're doing with a lot of shows nowadays, where you get little supplements, 5-minute things kicked in on the web. Between episodes, possibly. So, Heather, what do you think about the crew's complement? Are you more of a TNG ensemble crew person, or are you more of a tight knit crew with a couple of ancillary characters who reoccur?
I'm right on point with Adam there about Lower Decks. I've actually had conversations with a few different people about that episode and how interesting it would be to get the perspective of ensigns more frequently and what's going on around the ship. So I think that just sticking with tradition, having having that closer, tight-knit group, I feel like they're probably going to go that way. But I think if they kept a broader perspective and were able to tell stories that let us explore the ship in ways that we haven't before, that would be extremely appealing to me and to a lot of people I've spoken to.
Wow, that's really great insight. I love that thought. Chris, what are you thinking about the crew? Are you looking more for a captain, first officer, and doctor?
I would like to see a bit more of an ensemble crew. Because, I really dug how they handled it in Deep Space Nine. I mean, at some points, you had like 13 main characters pretty much. And as long as they have good writers writing, I think an ensemble could work really well. But I wouldn't be surprised if in the first year they keep it maybe more tight-knit and then go from there.
All right, so how about villains? Let's move on to villains. Do you think that we're going to see a retread of the familiar, iconic Trek villains of the past coming back to be the main villains in the new series? Are we going to get Klingons and Romulans and Borg back again, or are we going to start to see some new villain races that are going to be going to rise to prominence? What do you think about that, Adam?
I am the kind of person who loves to root for the bad guy in movies, and my thought process is always, you're never going to kill Captain Kirk all the way. You're never going to beat James Bond or Batman all the way. So how much verve is this villain going to bring to the table, and how close can they get to actually executing their plan? That said, I think one of the more interesting stances to take on the topic, though, I had a conversation with Devin Faraci of birthmoviesdeath.com at the first STLV I went to, and he told me a story where he had a conversation with J.J. Abrams, actually, and he had told J.J. that it was his opinion that the best Trek stories don't have a villain. They have maybe an adversary or a situation that they need to overcome, like maybe something like the Corbomite maneuver or the voyage home, something to that effect. So I think that a good villain or a good nemesis, no pun intended, is definitely something that could work in the Star Trek context, but isn't necessarily a prerequisite for great Star Trek storytelling.
Interesting perspective. Chris, I know you're a big fan of the Klingons.
Yes, but I'm hoping we get all new villains in the series. Also, like the same as like with the captain, I'm hoping they don't really retread past ideas too much. Yeah, I don't think you'll see like any like Romulans or Klingons popping up, picking fights or nothing. I think they're gonna go in a different direction, and that's definitely cool with me.
Well, it's possible if it's set that far in the future that the Klingon race may have died off, right? They were pretty much on the brink for a while there.
Yeah, possible, yes.
You never know. Heather, any iconic villains you're hoping to see, or do you want them to scrap them all?
Scrap them all.
Oh.
I think that we will probably see some familiar faces, but I am all about new Trek. And I think with some new villains and new aliens, we would have great opportunities to see some amazing makeup. And I'm a huge fan of Face Off.
Yes.
I would love to see some of those artists working on Star Trek. I want to see new stuff. I want new.
Okay, we get it.
I'm
so,
really excited about it.
No, it's awesome. But how about very, very underutilized Trek villains making a comeback? And I'm, of course, stumping for the Gorn yet again, who has not been used nearly enough in the franchise. I think this is a good play that where CG is at a great place now. We can do very realistic CG Gorns. Let's go for it, right? Let's give the Gorn his due.
Start a webpage. Bring back the Gorn.
I'm telling you, at the convention this year, me and Bobby Clark, we're going to start campaigning for the Gorn to make a comeback. So we talked about villains. What about iconic storylines and story arcs? Are there any things that you would like to see continued in the future? If this is a future set show, what do you think about some of the storylines that we loved from prior Trek series making a comeback? Chris, what do you think about possibilities of continuing where it left off?
Past stories, you can leave them in the past too. I mean, things like old like species coming back and being part of the Federation, I mean, that's like the only kind of thing I wouldn't mind seeing. Like the Gorn, like bring them in, or the Cardassians or something like that, and have them sprinkled throughout the crew. But as far as past stories, go with new ones. And I'm sure a lot of the stories, if they really are going to do an exploration series like the original series, the Next Generation, then they're going to sort of almost by default. I mean, you're going to get some rewritten old storylines and all that, and new takes on things. So,
yep, that's probably true. Heather, any thoughts on reviving old story arcs?
Well, I think that we should see Khan again.
Oh.
No, you know what? Like, yeah, leave him in the past. I think that they would make great little Easter eggs if they were alluded to somewhere. But no, all new stuff, all new.
Oh, okay. Heather is on the totally new tip. And finally, Adam, thoughts on reviving possible old story arcs, maybe digging up some Borg in the Arctic Circle.
I absolutely am a huge Borg fan, but I don't think we necessarily need to go there. I think if you want an interesting Borg origin story, you might want to read Destiny by David Mack, which is pretty interesting, and I'm not even that huge a fan of the books, but I think rather than continue any specific storyline, I think there are still a lot of really interesting conflicts inherent to the Roddenberry box, as they like to call it, that are still, would be really interesting to explore on a character level. I think a really great example is that episode of TNG, I think the Bonding that Ron Moore wrote, where they were kind of really having a tough time reconciling with Gene this idea that people in the 24th century would still have or need the capacity to grieve over death. And I think as a sort of society that has been established, there are still sort of interior, personal conflicts that have been established that can really be explored and extrapolated in an interesting way.
Before we move on to the more controversial CBS All Access topic, let's go around the horn one last time and see if anybody has anything else that they want to talk a little bit of speculation about this new series before we move on. So, Heather, do you have any other thoughts about this series that you haven't shared with us yet that you'd like to?
I really don't. I don't. I'm interested to see what happens. I mean, we don't have writers. We don't have anything. So again, I've really tried not to speculate and think too much, except that I obviously want to see all new characters, new storylines, new villains, maybe a new ship. They can keep Enterprise, but otherwise, new.
Okay. Adam, any other thoughts on this new Trek series before we move on?
Yeah, I think if we are in a situation where this does become an extrapolation of the JJ verse, I think there are certain things that people can look forward to. I think that the cinematography established by Dan Mindell, gorgeous. Scott Chambliss' production design, gorgeous. Michael Kaplan's costume work, gorgeous. So, just the dressing, if you will, I think it has been put in place that, even if this is sort of a timeline that most of the established Trek fans wouldn't necessarily want to see continue, that there are still a lot of aspects just there for you to sort of build upon and really dig into. So I would love to see this be a Prime Universe storyline that we're going to get here. But if it is JJ sort of influenced, I think there's a lot to be explored and have fun with there.
Yeah, I'll throw my lot in with you again and hope it's a Prime Universe show. But I'd be happy either way, I think. But Chris Ritzer, any final thoughts, things that you haven't talked about yet that you want to?
Yeah, I'm just hoping that CBS pumps enough resources and cash into the series and gives it a fair shot. And if it doesn't do well in like ratings for, say, the first episode or something, that they don't go off the deep end or something like that.
Yeah, no knee-jerk reactions.
Yeah, no knee-jerk reactions. Just give it some time and give it the backing it needs, and I think they'll be rewarded.
Well, that is another perfect segue into what I'm about to read off here. So when the announcement originally came out, a lot of fans got up in arms about the fact that this is going to be behind a paywall, and it's going to be part of this CBS All Access $6.99 a month subscription plan. So people were not happy about that. Some people didn't mind. Some people were not too pleased. So I know Heather has come out already online and stated her position on the all access. So Heather, what is your feeling on the all access?
So I spend $6 just on breakfast every day. You know, I'm all for it. I watch, you know, I have Netflix, I have Hulu, I have HBO for Game of Thrones, I have Showtime. Those are a little more expensive, but I have absolutely no problem paying $6 a month, whether it's 6 months a year to see Star Trek on TV. I'm definitely very passionate about the fact that I definitely understand that there are people for whom $6 is too much. And I don't think those people should be ridiculed about it. I mean, it's ultimately each individual's choice. But for many of us, especially those of us who go to the convention and who drop several $1,000s for, 4 days in Las Vegas, I think $6 is definitely something within reason.
Yeah, I may tend to agree with you. I get maybe some of the controversy is that, maybe people feel they're already paying for cable TV and that shouldn't necessarily have to pay for exclusive content that they feel maybe should be on television. But Adam, what do you think about the $6.99 paywall?
I'm all about it. I had mentioned earlier in the discussion that I sort of came to Star Trek through a streaming portal, and I think that this is where television in general is going. Film, content, visual media, whatever, it's all sort of heading that way to begin with. And I think that Heather's 100% right. Some of this crap you see people spending on the dealer room floor in Vegas just blow your mind, but we're going to get up in arms about $1.50 an episode of Star Trek. I don't know, but you had also mentioned Game of Thrones as well, which I think is a perfect example. Yeah. Biggest show in the world right now. Yeah. And about a year or two ago, before HBO launched their proprietary streaming service, HBO Now, it was a situation where they were having to field questions in the press. How do you feel about people, using each other's HBO Go passwords and not, that whole thing, and all these people? It was the most torrented show, to date, and people would always raise the comment, well, if I had the money, for HBO, I'd pay for it, but I only want to watch Game of Thrones. I don't know. I don't understand how that's any different than this. So I'll be there day one with my $6.99 recurring charge in hand. But what I'd love to see beyond that is to see how deep CBS is willing to dig into their archive. I want to see some classic television, which I know CBS certainly has in spades. So I'm very excited to see where this goes, and I think that this is going to be a very fruitful format for them to exhibit Star Trek in.
That's another excellent point that you brought up there, is that, when you're talking about a monthly subscription, this service is going to be more than just the Star Trek show. You're going to get access to, I guess, all current CBS shows, as well as probably a lot of archive material, because a lot of other networks are doing that now already. And we're kind of moving towards this new a la carte model for television viewing. Everybody seems to be starting to put out their own apps and their own channels that you can subscribe monthly to. So this is kind of almost seems like a logical progression for CBS. Chris, what are your thoughts?
Something I think that needs to be discussed is that by the time this show debuts, it is not going to be $5.99 or $6.99 in all likelihood. It will probably be $10 because CBS is going after NFL games. And they've already said the plan is already to jack it to $10 fairly soon. And then from there, the talk with insiders is once they get the NFL license, it would go up to $15 a month. So yeah, they can say $5.99, $6.99, whatever, but that's going to go up really, really quick. So
I'd heard that they were talking to NFL, but I hadn't heard anything about the increase.
Yeah, it's getting close. So the price is going to go up, and it's not, I guess, a terrible amount, but this is where it'd be nice if they just dump all the episodes in one shot. You can get it for a month, binge watch it, and you're done, and then you can cancel it. But if they drag it out, I don't think they will, though. I think this will be a week by week thing, and it'll be dragged out an entire season over like a 6-month period, because otherwise that's exactly what would happen. People are just going to buy it, binge watch it, and dump it. And they're not going to want that because they're not going to make any money that way off of Trek fans. And because the same thing would be happening with football games, too. People will be getting it for football season. They're going to cancel it in the off season. Yeah. So I think they're going to try to drag it out as much as possible.
Again, it's kind of that point where there's so much we don't know. We just don't know.
Yeah.
Well, it's possible that, since we are getting into the world of a la carte television, if they do get the NFL, maybe they could offer a tiered service where if you do pay the $6.99, you get everything except the NFL stuff. And then if you paid the 15 or 10 or 15, you get everything. Maybe that would be a better solution.
Yeah, well, and the other thing is, this is still in development. So something that I've tried to say is start giving them your feedback. Like,
Yes.
Go ahead, and if you want to complain about $6.99, complain about $6.99. If you want to, explore, I don't know where that was about the price increase with the NFL, but complain about that and say that's not what you want. There's nothing holding us back from letting CBS know what's going to work for us, and they may care, they may not, but there's always a point in putting some effort into voicing your concerns.
So do any of you guys now subscribe to any of these a la carte TV services? Netflix, Hulu, HBO Now, any of that stuff?
Yep. All of the above.
Wow.
I said a minute ago, we have Netflix, we have Hulu, we have HBO and Showtime, and we watch very specific shows with the exception of like a rare movie here or there on any of those formats. It's for Game of Thrones. It's for Orange is the New Black, House of Cards. It's for specific shows and not for the content.
Yeah, I'm a Netflix guy, and I think it's great. I've been a Netflix member since 2001, well before streaming was even a thing. But one new service that I'm actually pretty interested in potentially joining is called Shudder, which just recently launched a couple months ago, and it is a curated site specifically for horror films. And they got a guy named Sam Zimmerman over there who's really, really got some interesting taste, and they're putting up new stuff all the time. Same thing with the website called Mubi, M-U-B-I. So if you guys are interested in art film, experimental film, foreign film, that's another great resource, and there's always something new. So I'm totally all for this kind of formatting.
Chris, any thoughts from you on this a la carte model? I don't know if you subscribe to anything or not.
The only thing I stream is NHL Game Center Live for Ranger games, and no Hulu or anything like that. Streaming is great and I like it a lot, but the technology isn't quite there yet, and you're not getting the 720p resolution, and there's still, I notice, a lot of slowdown and dragging here and there, so I'm not too big a fan of it yet. I like it, it's good for what it is, but it needs a couple little bugs worked out.
Speaking of resolution, do you guys think we're going to get Star Trek in 4K when the new show premieres?
Maybe.
I don't think so. No, I don't think so. I think that, like I said earlier, I'm a huge cinematography nerd, and if you look specifically at the final season of Enterprise, which to date, prior to Beyond, is the only digital Trek we've seen so far, there's a lot of prosthetic makeup that gets a little bit dodgy if you get real deep in it. I mean, plus, most people don't have the capacity to even watch 4K yet, not even... your eye can only, resolve a certain amount of digital information. I think that maybe to begin with, they'll just be proper HD, and depending on the reaction, maybe they'll go deeper. I'm sure that they're going to shoot the show in 4K resolution, probably on the Red camera, or maybe do 2K on the Alexa, but I don't think we're going to see exhibition 4K immediately. No.
Well, we've got 2 Christmas holiday shopping seasons before the show debuts. That's an awful lot of 4K TVs to get bought.
This is true.
Yeah. But all right, so any final thoughts on the CBS All Access streaming before we close up the show? Anybody?
I'm just very interested in what kind of money they're going to be putting into production in general, overall. There are some really great shows on Netflix. How could I not mention Daredevil? Wow.
Oh, that show is fantastic.
Yeah, they're all done very well. HBO, I think, well, they've got a lot of money to make a very, very impressive Game of Thrones, but I just don't know. We don't know what they're going to put into making it, and that's where I'm a little cautious and get a little worried as far as what we're going to see when it is released. So I'm looking forward to hearing more information about that down the road.
Adam, any final thoughts on All Access before we close up?
Very positive about the whole thing. I think this is exactly what the Trek community needed, a little shot in the arm right before the 50th anniversary. The thing that I'm most interested to see what they reveal next is whether or not Alex Kurtzman will be the showrunner, as in head writer along the lines of Michael Piller, Brandon Braga, Jerry Taylor, etc., or whether his executive producer title will be more along the lines of Rick Berman, wherein he is the arbiter of this universe. And I had a really interesting conversation recently at Paramount here with Dave Rossi, who actually got started as an assistant on TNG and worked his way up in the course of 10 years or so to be a producer on Enterprise. And that was the first thing that he had mentioned to me is this guy actually going to be writing and leading the writing process of the show, or will it be more of an arbiter, ceremonial, head honcho kind of role? So I think that's the next bit of information I'm really curious to see kind of come out. But I'm just loving seeing all the reaction on Heather's unofficial Vegas Facebook group and Babel Conference, which is Trek FM's Facebook group. A lot of great conversation, a lot of people really throwing down some interesting opinions. So I'm just relishing living in this little sort of unknown bubble that we are currently in at the moment.
Yes, it is kind of fun because all of us geeks get to talk about this stuff and speculate about what we think it's going to be. Chris, any final thoughts on the All Access?
I'm cautiously optimistic about it because I don't think CBS is going to want to screw this up, and I think they're going to give it the backing it needs.
Good point out. Yeah, I think that this is going to be another flagship show, and it's going to be an inaugural part of this new service. So, this just occurred to me. We were going to close up, but this just occurred to me. I'm going to throw one more thing out there before we depart. The timing of this announcement kind of struck me as odd because, we're so far out from the series actually airing, and it's right in the middle of this Star Wars hype. Do you guys think that this was a calculated move to try to give the Trek fans a little bit of a nod while they know the Star Wars community is having probably one of the best times of their lives?
I don't think that had anything to do with it. I think they just realized they have to get it out and they have to do it now. And it just happened to be at this time because they really need something for the 50th anniversary. They had to get it done. It's just a shareholder kind of thing at this point. It's about money.
Potentially. You don't think they could have waited until the actual 50th anniversary to announce it?
Well, that's the thing. You're only going to give just a few months notice then before it comes on. You want to pump it up as much as possible beforehand, and you want to start getting people interested in your service. If you just drop this on at the last second, you're going to be like, okay, it's come out in like a month and I have to do streaming stuff and yada yada. And no, I think this is really just money oriented.
Interesting. So that we got a year and change worth of drips and drabs that are going to come out right before the show actually airs.
Well, let me just say, I don't need to tell you guys because I know you know full well, Star Trek Las Vegas this year is going to be an absolute madhouse, and I cannot wait. It's going to be amazing.
Yes, it is. And I think everybody on this call is going?
Yes.
Absolutely.
That's a given.
Yes, I know Chris and I and Heather have booked our rooms already. Adam, have you?
I have not booked my room yet. I have, in the 3 years I've gone, I have yet to stay at the Rio just as a price thing. But I gotta say, having the opportunity to meet people like you, Jeff, Heather, Claire, Jordan Hoffman, Mary Serwinski, 5-Year Mission, the Trek Geeks, and Mission Log. It's just amazing, how everyone sort of comes together, and it's really sort of bolstered my fandom every year more so. And I think this is going to be an amazing year for it.
I completely agree, and I'm excited that Mr. Chris Ritzer is going to be coming to his first Las Vegas Star Trek convention.
Yes.
Yay!
There we go.
For the 50th, so I'm looking forward.
Yes.
Yeah, I think, Chris, you will learn what I learned this past year. It was actually my second convention in Vegas, but I think I discovered the true magic of STLV when I met all of these great folks, a lot of who have been on the show since then. So I'm looking forward to seeing everybody again.
Absolutely.
And meeting even more new people. So, guys, thanks a lot for coming on the show and talking about the new Star Trek show. So, as we close up, Adam, where can people find out more about you online if they're looking for you?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter. It's DR0. SIN, the number 0, and I'm posting about Trek all the time, cool stuff that's happening at Paramount, and follow me. I'll follow you back.
All right, Chris Ritzer, if anybody's looking for you, where can they find you?
In the nether regions of existence.
Wow. Heather, any place people can look for you specifically online besides the unofficial Facebook page for the STLV convention?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter. It's Sketching Venus. I post about all types of things, so it's not just Star Trek. Unfortunately, you get to look at dogs and fun stuff like that. And then, of course, yeah, the unofficial Star Trek Las Vegas convention group, and I'm on Facebook. You can find me through there, and feel free to add me because I love to make my Trek family bigger and bigger.
Yes, and if you were looking for more information about this show, you can go to the tricordertransmissions.com. Find us on Twitter at TTT_pod, Facebook / the Tricorder Transmissions. My personal Twitter is J_Benj, J_BENJ, and look forward to talking to you online. So thanks again, everybody, for being here. Heather, Chris, and Adam, we'll talk to you all again soon.
Live long and prosper.
Prosperity and long life.
Peace.
Hey, everybody, this is an extension to the previous interviews that you had just listened to. So, unfortunately, Craig Cohen, our usual co-host, was not able to join us for the previous discussion that you just listened to. And he's here now. It would not be a complete discussion without his input on the Star Trek 2017 buzz. So, Craig Cohen, I'm glad we were able to get you squeezed into this episode before it went out.
Me too. Yeah, I know sometimes with the behind the scenes chaos that goes on with putting a podcast together, it's sometimes difficult to get everybody in the same place at the same time.
You know, it really is. I'm glad that you said that because I'm not sure if people in the audience realize when you have a bunch of people in different time zones, they're all over the country, all over the world, trying to logisticate getting everybody on the same recording at the same time sometimes is prohibitively difficult.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, I'm glad that you're here because I have some questions that I posed to our previous audience and got some really great conversation going. I'm just going to go ahead and use the same topic points to talk to you about the new Trek 2017 starting in January of 2017. So if you're ready to go, I'm going to launch right in with, what time period do you hope that this show is set in? I know we're an original series podcast, and the Trek series on television have been all over the map so far. You've had a prequel series, you've had TOS, you've had Next Gen, DS9, Voyager. What time period are you hoping that this show will be in?
I think ideally, if they're really trying to do something new, fresh, and exciting, they should go I guess post Voyager, and maybe even take the Next Generation model and go 100 or 150 years, past the where the last series have sort of gone.
Yeah, Chris Ritzer, I think, said that he was hoping that it would be 100 years after the end of Deep Space Nine.
All right, yeah.
So that puts it way out there.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it sounds like you guys are kind of in line, and along the same lines as the time period. One of the speculative points that people have been talking about, and we had a lot of discussion about in our previous section on this episode, was the universe that this series will be set in. So obviously this will be starting right after the release of the third movie in the JJ universe, as it were. So this is the alternate reboot Star Trek universe, pressing the reset button on the original series. So do you think that this show is going to follow in that new timeline and canon, or do you think this will be a Prime Universe show?
I think it, from a business standpoint, it probably should follow the current movie series from a continuity standpoint, just because you don't want to create viewer confusion. But at the same time, I read a story in the New York Times where an executive was quoted as saying it's not related to this latest TV series, meaning Star Trek Beyond, which is kind of vague because it could still be set in that alternate, Star Trek 2009 continuity and just not be tied into the movie. At the same time, I think, again, this is just speaking from sort of synergy, to use a business term, I guess. It would allow you the possibility of maybe having cameos from people in the movies to maybe get people to give the TV show a shot. That doesn't mean that's what I want, but I think realistically, as a fan of Star Trek, being on TV or being on a pay TV service, you want to see it do well, and you want to see the right decisions made to enable it to do well.
Yeah. So, well, there you go. That's a great point, and I think that's something that all of us have struggled with as Trek fans. So we all want the series to do really well, but at the same time, we may have desires and hopes for this new series that would fulfill ourselves, but maybe wouldn't be the best commercial decisions to make. So if you were the architect of this new show, what would be your ideal universe and time period to set the show in, regardless of ratings and success?
Yeah, I would set it in the unaltered Prime universe, and again, really just take the Next Generation model and utilize it in 2017. So just jump a generation ahead, and then also really just work from the template that Roddenberry laid out.
Yeah, no, excellent point. And continuing along those lines, do you think, or do you want to see the Starship Enterprise make its return to television, or would you rather them start from ground zero with a brand new ship?
I think, as much as it pains me to say this, I really think that the Enterprise has been done. And if you look at a series like DS9, or if you look at Voyager, they were able to create new, exciting ships, in Voyager, and then even in what I guess DS9 had the Dominion. So I think this is an opportunity to really create a new starship that can become part of the fleet.
Good point. I think we were equally divided on that in our prior conversation. I think Heather was all about the new and wanted everything new, and some of us were more nostalgic and were hoping to see the Enterprise. But
sure,
I guess not to conflict with the films that are going to be running concurrently with this show, I guess they probably can't do the Enterprise, or they probably shouldn't do the Enterprise, because they can't do it with the same crew as you're going to be seeing in the movies. So that may make it a little bit difficult to pull off the Enterprise. But, Craig, as a staunch Captain Kirk fan, what kind of a captain are you hoping to see on this new series? Are you hoping to see someone who is Kirk-like, or are you looking for something different?
I think something different. I mean, again, if you look at the past shows that occurred after TOS, you really had a nice, diverse, different set of personalities as captains, from Picard all the way to Janeway, and then even Archer. So I think this is really an opportunity to just create another unique captain, and maybe take some of the best elements of all the captains that have come before.
Yeah, no, excellent point. I as a selfish move, I'm hoping myself for a more Kirk-like captain, but there are a lot of great elements to all of the other captains that we've seen. So I kind of feel like I should agree with you on that. This is going to be an interesting foray into a new series. And speaking of a whole new series, moving beyond the captain, what are your desires for a crew? Are you hoping more for a more TOS-like Trinity core and other characters surrounding, or do you want more of an ensemble feel like you had on The Next Generation, where kind of everybody gets almost equal time, with slight bias towards, of course, the captain and Data and Riker? But what are your feelings on the crew as a whole? What are you hoping to see?
Well, we talked a lot about this during our commentaries for the original series, and what a Star Trek series, or what that series would be like if it ran in today's continuity, in terms of, or in terms of today's storytelling. the way they tell stories now on TV. And I think that's one of the benefits of this new show is really being able to explore um, the different personalities of the crew. So I think, going with a next generation style ensemble, and really devoting, maybe, arcs during the season where you can explore all those characters. I've always thought that is the main benefit of doing a new Star Trek series on TV.
That's great that you went in that direction, because there was a really great point that Heather had brought up, and around character development. And because you have an ongoing series, you can't approach it the same way as you do independent films, where you don't have to necessarily do a lot of character development in a film like they've been doing lately with the last two reboot films. They've been more action oriented, and you get a little bit of character development here and there, but for an ongoing series that has various story arcs, you need to spend a lot more time developing the characters and crew. So where an ensemble crew may actually work better for the long haul. So yep. I kind of get the feeling that may be the direction that they may go. I mean, we don't know for sure. What we'll see in a year and change. Mm-hmm. Now, changing the topic slightly away from the crew of the new show, are you hoping that any of the iconic villains from Trek past make their way into this new Trek show? Are you hoping that some of the past villains become some of the main villains in the new show? I'm talking about maybe Klingons and Romulans and the Borg and the Dominion. What are you thinking? Would you like to see them invent new alien villains, or do you want to see the old ones brought back into the series?
I think the cheap answer is a mixture of both. I think you can't do Star Trek without utilizing the iconic things that people expect from it in terms of, races we're going to see. But at the same time, if they decide to, open up the universe a little bit, they can experiment with introducing new alien species as well. But I think it would be criminal if we didn't see the Klingons and the Romulans, or even to I'm sure excite you a little bit, the Gorn.
Ah, nice. I knew you. I was gonna go there. I went there in the prior discussion, and I was hoping that I would be able to broach the topic with you. So I'm thinking, now in today's world, we've seen this incredible CGI technology we have, and the last time we saw the Gorn on the television screen was in Enterprise, which ended in 2005. So CG technology, I think today, 10 years plus later, or 12 years by the time this show airs, it should be even far exceed what we had back then. So I'm thinking it would be a great time to revive the Gorn.
Yeah, totally. But even to expand beyond that, I would love to see this series really embrace the the physical makeup and costuming.
Practical effects, yeah.
Practical effects, yeah. I mean, that's really another important part of Star Trek to me, and I think they've kind of done it in the new movies too. They haven't relied too much on. I can't remember any complete CG characters that they did, but I would love to see possibly a practical effect Gorn with maybe CGI elements.
I would agree with you, and I'd love to see the same thing. And the thing that I'm more concerned about is that I think that J.J. Abrams, people really trash him, and I know that there's a lot of ire out there for J.J., and I feel like he kind of gets the practical effects, and especially, I don't want to mention a taboo subject on a Trek podcast, but his approach to the new Star Wars film focused heavily on practical effects. I'm hoping that, he's not involved in this, but I'm hoping that on the show that they don't get too heavy into the CGI just because it's more budget conscious and more and easier to pull off. And I know that the days of the rubber suit Gorn are probably long gone, but I'm sure that the effects that we can generate in a practical way are much, much better. And Heather actually brought up the show Face Off, and as a way to demonstrate what people can do with practical makeup effects, and she was hoping that they would kind of use those type of techniques to create the new aliens that we'll see on the show.
Totally, that is a great point.
Yeah. So that kind of rounds out some of the elements of the new show, is there anything else that you had in mind that you're hoping to see that you didn't already cover, as far as the new show is concerned?
Um, not really in general in terms of the show, but I do want to sort of hit on the fact that Alex Kurtzman, who was involved in the two JJ films, is really, I guess is he kind of the showrunner for this?
That's what it sounds like.
Mm-hmm. I mean, if you look at his history in TV, he's had much success there. He was an executive producer and a writer on Hercules, The Legendary Journeys, Alias, which was a very successful show, Fringe, which was another science fiction show that a lot of people really responded to, and currently, Sleepy Hollow. So he's got a great TV track record. So I'm hoping he brings his TV experience more to the table than his Star Trek cinematic experience. Beyond that, I really, really hope that CBS is able to leverage, the right way to connect with an audience outside of the core Star Trek audience. And that's my biggest fear. I know the pilot's going to air on the regular network, and then everything else is going to be behind their streaming service, which they're really kind of hitching their wagon to this new Star Trek series for this streaming service. And I respect the fact that a network is sort of understanding that cable TV might not be here forever. But at the same time, it's a tough sell to convince people who aren't ardent fans of something to shell out $6 a month for it. So I hope they're able to take advantage of certain marketing techniques or generate excitement that's really gonna expand beyond that core fan base that's gonna throw down the $6 a month without hesitation.
Perfect segue, because that's where I was actually going to go next, because that seems to be the biggest point of controversy about this new show, is the fact that it's launching behind a paywall. So, I would think that a lot of Star Trek fans would be willing to pay to watch this show, but that Star Trek fans are not the majority of TV watchers, and we know that. And is this show going to have enough appeal? Do you think that it's a mistake to put it behind that paywall? I mean, we're talking about a show that's a year and a couple of months in the future, and we're seeing now the cable industry starting to evolve a little bit into standalone channels that you can buy into. But do you think in a year and 2 months that we're going to be so much further ahead of this curve that people are already going to be adopting that new a la carte model and cord cutting and getting away from regular cable subscriptions? Because I'm kind of feeling that a year is not that much time to make that much of a paradigm shift in how people are watching television.
Yeah, no, I would agree. But at the same time, I think what they really need to do here is create, and this is a really, really, really tall order, is create, a must-view scenario, sort of like Game of Thrones. And when HBO went with the HBO Now model, where you could get HBO without subscribing through cable for $15 a month. And there are a lot of people that subscribe to that service just so they could watch Game of Thrones. So if Star Trek is able to pull that off, I think it's possible. But again, creating that kind of buzz is really, really tough. And at the same time, you need to be telling stories that people care about and want to follow.
No, yeah, I agree, and I'm glad that you went down that road. But so the thing that keeps resonating in my head is that HBO as a cable service is an add-on package, right? So you're spending $10 to $15 a month on your cable bill to get HBO, right? But CBS is included. It's a local channel. So everything that they broadcast, you can watch or DVR. So now you're going to be, I don't envision a huge percentage of people in 2016 dumping their cable subscription and starting to go a la carte. Now, that being said, people are already paying for cable still. They're getting CBS as part of their package, and now they're going to be told, okay, you're getting CBS, you're paying for CBS on your cable, but now you have to pay us an extra $6 to have this extra CBS app on your smartphone, your smart TV, your Roku box, your Apple TV, your Chromecast, or whatever it is. So you're probably not only are you asking for an extra money per month, you're also requiring people to own an extra device to watch this stuff on. So is this kind of shooting yourself in the foot? And I'm not, but believe me, I'm not saying this is a bad idea. I'm just kind of throwing this out as a devil's advocate.
Oh no, totally. It's a risk, but I also think it's a risk that they're this is the only way they could take that risk. Short of taking another property that could command people paying money, the only way to really get this streaming service moving is with a hot property. And I think they also need to really sell the fact that every other episode of Star Trek is available on this streaming service or on this platform.
Yes.
And really make it an event leading up to it. I mean, it's not launching till 2017, so maybe get people on board with suggested episodes of the other series to watch to lead up to it, or really just create a reason for people to want to get on board with this service before the new episodes air.
Yeah, excellent point. I think we're kind of on the same page, and I guess only time will tell, how the streaming service is going to work out. But do you? This is kind of tangential to this. Do you feel? I asked this to the other group of folks we just had on before, but do you feel there's any connection between the announcement coming out when it did and the current hype about the new Star Wars film that's coming out in a month and a half? Do you think that this was kind of a calculated move to say, hey, by the way, Star Trek's got something new coming up too?
No, I think it was probably just a case of really convenient or inconvenient timing, depending on how you want to look at it. Because, I mean, the juggernaut that is the new Star Wars movie is so big. I mean, nothing will ever approach the hype that Star Wars had in 1977. But this feels probably damn close to what people were going through in 77. I mean, I can't go anywhere, be it food shopping or be it, a trip to Target or just out on the street without seeing some kind of Star Wars marketing, either, via a cereal box or a piece of clothing or, a kid with a toy on the street or a T-shirt. So I think people are just really focused on Star Wars right now. And, I think if they were looking to tie Star Trek into that, in terms of riding its coattails, it's really going to get lost in the static, in my opinion.
Yeah, I wasn't sure what to think about that. It felt to me, and, I don't want to, cheese anybody off by saying something like this, but it feels like this is an announcement that would have been better received in the 50th year as opposed to before it. So, I mean, next year, 2016 is going to be a humongous year for Star Trek. You've got a lot of cool stuff going on. You've got the convention in Vegas with an extra day tacked on. I'm sure there's going to be, television specials, and there's going to be, fan docs and films, and everything's going to be very Star Trek centric in 2016. And, here we are, this announcement coming out in November of 2015. It just seems to me that the timing would have been so much better just to wait into the first quarter of 2016, the 50th year, and it probably would have had such a more impact. It just felt like the timing was weird to me.
Yeah, no, I agree. And maybe it was one of those things where in this day and age, it's so hard to keep a secret and to avoid being scooped by other media outlets. They figured we got to lead with this story so we can control the narrative.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. That's a great point. Maybe they felt that the leak was very close. I just felt kind of weird that it was so lacking in meat. That they let no details out. I mean, we don't know who's involved from an actor and actress standpoint. We have no idea where this show is going to be set or what time period, and it just seems kind of like a, hey, by the way, we're working on this kind of thing, and here's when we're going to launch it. But
yeah,
I'm glad to know that it's coming. And I think it's going to be great to follow up the 50th anniversary with a brand new television series. And I'm sure that I'll be buying into the streaming service when this show hits.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. So do you have anything more to say? Any final thoughts on Star Trek 2017? Any more speculation from Craig Cohen?
No, just that it's really cool that we, way back when we started this podcast, we we talked a lot about, the lost opportunity of not having a show on TV. So I'm really excited to see that, regardless of how it turns out, we're going to get another TV show. And I look forward to talking to it as we lead up to 2017. One other thing that seems kind of interesting to me, just thinking about it right now as a final thought, is this show is just being called Star Trek, which is very interesting. I don't know if they're too far out to actually have a full name for it, or if they're just going to go with calling it Star Trek, which sort of raises all kinds of questions.
It does, because the only series that was actually called Star Trek was the original series. All the other ones had subtitles, right? Mm-hmm. So I have a feeling that they'll announce an actual title for it sometime next year, along with more information about who's going to be in it, what we're going to see, where we're going to see it. And I think this was just one of those announcements that they had to get out the door with a very large lack of detail. Mm-hmm. So, Craig, I am very glad that we were able to record this before the episode went live. So,
me too.
Yeah, thanks for stopping by, and we'll be back on next Sunday with a regular episode. I think it's Gold Key number 11 will be coming. Yes. And thanks to all my previous panelists, of course, for being on this episode as well. I know we already closed out the show before, but we'll say goodbye again. Craig, we will be talking again very, very soon.
Yes.
Yeah. So, all right. Thanks for listening, everybody, and we'll see you again next